The video file took 10 minutes to download over the base's satellite connection. I didn't recognize the number. I just saw the thumbnail. It was a photo of two little girls, my girls, gagged with duct tape in the back of a van. The caption under the photo was simple. Sold. For hours to border. Say goodbye, Hunter. I didn't scream. I just loaded my rifle. Hit like, subscribe for more betrayal stories, and comment your city or country. The dust in this country tasted like sulfur and old copper. It coated your teeth and sat heavy in your lungs, a constant reminder that you were 7,000 miles away from anything that mattered. I was sitting on a crate of MREs, staring at the satellite phone in my hand. The screen was cracked, but the image was crystal clear. Harper and Ruby, my 6-year-old twins. They were wearing the matching yellow dresses I had sent them for their birthday last month. The dresses were dirty now. Ruby was crying. I could tell by the way her eyes were puffy and red above the gray tape. Harper was staring straight at the camera, her eyes wide with a terror that no child should ever know. I looked at the timestamp. The message had been sent 20 minutes ago. Sold. For hours to border. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. A cold, heavy silence settled over me, like I had just been submerged in ice water. This is what they train us for, not for panic, but for assessment. I assessed the background of the photo. Desert scrub outside the van window. A blurred road sign. It looked like West Texas. My ex-wife, Violet, was supposed to be watching them. She had full custody while I was deployed. She was living in a gated community in El Paso with her new husband, Victor, a man who smiled too much and wore suits that cost more than my annual salary. He was a logistics consultant. I always knew that meant he moved things for people who didn't want to be seen. I never thought the things would be my daughters. I stood up. My knees popped. I walked out of the comms tent and straight toward the command center. Sergeant, you can't go in there, the MP at the door said, stepping in front of me. General Grant is in a briefing with. I didn't stop. I didn't even slow down. I just looked at the kid. I had been training men like him for 15 years. He saw something in my eyes that made him step back. It wasn't anger. It was the look of a man who had nothing left to lose. I pushed the door open. General Grant was standing over a topographic map, surrounded by 3 officers. The air conditioning was humming. They all looked up. Hunter, Grant asked, his voice low. He was a good man. A hard man. He had been my CO for 3 tours. This better be life or death, son. I walked to the table and placed the phone on top of the map of enemy territory. I didn't say a word. I just slid it toward him. Grant looked down. He adjusted his glasses. He stared at the screen for a long time. The other officers leaned in. The room went dead silent. Who sent this? Grant asked. He didn't look up. Unknown number, I said. My voice sounded strange, hollow, metallic. Background is Texas. Victor, the stepfather. He's moving them. He's selling them, sir. Probably across the border into Mexico. I have 3 hours and 40 minutes left. Grant looked at me then. He saw the rifle slung over my shoulder. He saw the tactical bag I had already packed in my mind. You know I can't deploy you domestically, Hunter, Grant said softly. You know the rules. If you leave this base without orders, you're AWOL. You're a fugitive. I can't protect you. I don't need protection, I said. I need a ride. The other officers started to protest. Sir, we can't just. Grant held up a hand. He silenced them. He looked at the photo of the girls again. He had a granddaughter about that age. I saw his jaw tighten. He took a deep breath and looked at his watch. My personal transport jet is fueled on the tarmac, Grant said. He spoke clearly, but he wasn't looking at the officers. He was looking at me. It is scheduled for a maintenance flight to Fort Bliss, Texas, in 10 minutes. The manifest is empty. If a stowaway were to sneak on board, well, my pilots might not notice until they land. Sir, one of the officers whispered, shocked. That's a court-martial offense. I said the manifest is empty, Grant barked, his voice turning to steel. He looked back at me. Fort Bliss is 20 minutes from the border. The jet does Mach 0. 9. You'll be on the ground in 3 hours. I nodded. It was the only thank you I could give him. Hunter, Grant said as I turned to leave. I stopped at the door. If you catch him, Grant said, his eyes hard behind his glasses, you make sure he never sells another child again. Do you understand me? Yes, sir, I said. I ran to the tarmac. The heat was rising off the asphalt, distorting the air. The jet was there, engines already whining, heat shimmering behind the turbines. It was a sleek, gray military transport. Fast. Invisible. I didn't wait for the stairs to lower completely. I vaulted up the steps. The crew chief, a guy named Logan, looked at me. He had a headset on. He looked at my face, then down at my gear. He didn't ask for papers. He just pointed to the jump seat in the back and hit the button to close the door. As the jet taxied, I pulled out my tablet. I had 3 hours in the air. That was 3 hours to find out where Victor was taking them. I connected to the jet's Wi-Fi. It was slow, but it worked. I pulled up Violet's social media. There it was. A post from 2 hours ago. A picture of her holding a cocktail by a pool. The caption read, "Finally some me time, while Victor takes the girls camping. #relaxation, #momlife. Camping. My hands tightened around the tablet until the screen distorted. She was drinking margaritas while her husband was selling our children like livestock. I opened a tracking program I wasn't supposed to have. Years ago, before the divorce turned messy, I had installed a parental safety app on an old iPad I gave the twins. Violet had probably forgotten it existed. It only worked if the device was charged and connected to a signal. I typed in the password. The circle spun on the screen. Locating. Locating. Please, Harper. Please have the iPad. Please turn it on to play a game. Please. The jet roared as we lifted off, the G-force pushing me back into the seat. I didn't feel it. All I felt was the thumping of my own heart in my ears. Ping. A blue dot appeared on the map. It wasn't a campground. It was moving fast. Southbound on Highway 54. I zoomed in. They were heading toward a small, private airstrip used by crop dusters and smugglers, 10 miles north of the border. I did the math. At their current speed, they would be there in 45 minutes. I looked at my flight time remaining. 2 hours and 50 minutes. I wasn't going to make it. I unbuckled my seatbelt and walked to the cockpit. Logan turned around, startled. I need a phone, I said, and I need you to fly faster. We're already redlining it, man, Logan said. Then break the engines, I said. I need to make a call. I dialed the number I knew by heart. It rang 4 times. Then, a groggy female voice answered. Hello. Violet, I said. There was a pause. A long, heavy silence. I could hear music in the background on her end. Hunter, she asked, sounding annoyed. Why are you calling me? It's the middle of the day. Aren't you fighting a war or something? Where are the girls, Violet? I told you in the email, she huffed. They're camping with Victor. Bonding time. Something you wouldn't know anything about. Listen to me very carefully, I said. My voice was low, barely a whisper, but it cut through the static of the line. I know where they are. I know what Victor is doing. And I know you're lying. Excuse me. Her voice spiked. You're crazy. This is why I left you. You're paranoid. Victor is selling them, Violet, I said. He's at the border. Stop it, she snapped. He's at Lake Amistad. He sent me a picture an hour ago. Check the metadata, I said. Check the location on the photo. Silence. I heard her fumbling with the phone. I waited. 5 seconds. 10 seconds. That's not possible, she whispered. Her voice trembled. It says they're on Route 54. He played you. I lied. I didn't know if she was involved yet, but I needed her scared. I needed her to panic. He's selling them to the cartel, Violet. And if you don't tell me exactly what car he is driving right now, you are going to be an accessory to human trafficking. A black SUV, she cried. A Suburban. License plate KL4-9. Oh my. Hunter, what do I do? Nothing, I said. You stay there. You drink your margarita. Because if I find out you knew about this, The cartel will be the least of your problems. I hung up. I looked at Logan in the pilot's seat. How much time did we shave off? I asked. 10 minutes, he said. We're burning fuel too fast. We might not have enough to get back. I don't plan on coming back, I said. I went back to my seat and started checking my gear. I didn't have my full kit. Just a sidearm I had smuggled on, a knife, and the clothes on my back. I wasn't a soldier anymore. I was a father. And God help anyone who stood between me and that airstrip. The cabin pressure was the only thing holding me together. At 30,000 feet, the air is thin and recycled, smelling of ozone and coffee. I sat alone in the leather jump seat of the General's transport, surrounded by luxury, while my entire world was burning to the ground 400 miles below. I stared at the tablet in my lap. The blue dot representing my daughters had stopped moving. That was both good and bad. Good, because they hadn't crossed the border yet. Bad, because it meant they had reached the staging area, the exchange point. I couldn't just land and start shooting. This was American soil. If I went in loud, the local police would arrest me before I got within a mile of Victor. And while I was sitting in a jail cell explaining custody arrangements, my girls would be halfway to a compound in Sonora. I needed help, but not the official kind. I pulled up an encrypted messaging app. I scrolled past the active duty contacts, the guys who would demand orders and warrants, and found a name I hadn't used in 4 years. Ian. Ian was a former intelligence analyst who had been dishonorably discharged for hacking into the NSA. He didn't work for the government anymore. He worked for cash. He was a ghost, a broker who operated out of a salvage yard in El Paso. I hit the call button. This line is dead, a voice answered instantly. No hello. No name. It's Hunter, I said. The silence on the other end stretched for 3 seconds. Hunter, the last time I heard your voice, you were breaking my nose in a bar in Kandahar. I broke your nose because you were selling convoy routes to the highest bidder, I said flatly. But I didn't turn you in. I let you walk. And I assume you're calling to cash in that favor. Ian asked. I heard the sound of a keyboard clacking furiously in the background. I need a car, I said. Something fast, nondescript. And I need a layout of the private airstrip on Route 54, north of the border. The one the smugglers use. The Grim Reaper's driveway. Ian chuckled, but the humor was dark. That's cartel territory, Hunter. You don't go there for a Sunday drive. What are you into? My kids are there, Ian. The keyboard stopped clacking. Victor, my ex-wife's husband. He has them. I continued, my voice staying steady despite the rage boiling in my gut. He's trading them. Give me 2 minutes, Ian said. The playfulness was gone. He was all business now. I waited. The jet banked slightly to the left. Logan, the pilot, called back from the cockpit. Sir, we're starting our initial descent. ETA 20 minutes. I can't land at the main airport. Too many eyes. I'm putting us down on a reserve strip 10 miles out. You'll have to hike to the road. Understood, I said. Ian came back on the line. Hunter, I'm looking at Victor's financials. I cracked his cloud accounts. This guy isn't a criminal mastermind. He's a gambler. A bad one. How bad? He owes 300 grand to the Sinaloa cartel, Ian said. He's been borrowing against a business that doesn't exist. He missed his payment deadline last week. They told him to pay up or they'd take his kneecaps. I closed my eyes. It wasn't just greed. It was desperation. A desperate man is the most dangerous thing on earth because he has no logic. He's just a cornered animal. He offered a trade, Ian said, his voice dropping. I'm reading the messages now. He told them he didn't have the cash, but he had assets worth more than the debt. 2 healthy children. Twins. American passports. My grip on the tablet tightened so hard the glass screen spiderwebbed in the corner. He sold them to pay a gambling debt. I whispered. It gets worse, Ian said. The buyer isn't just a generic heavy. The contact on the text chain is a guy named Julian. He's a middleman for the trafficking rings. If Julian takes possession of those girls, Hunter, they disappear. They don't go to a ransom hold. They vanish into the system. Where is the meat? I asked. The airstrip warehouse. Hangar 4, Ian said. I've arranged a car for you. An old Ford pickup. It's parked at the end of the runway where you're landing. Keys are in the gas cap. There's a police scanner in the glove box and a thermal scope under the seat. It's all I could get on short notice. It's enough, I said. Ian, if I don't make it back, don't. Ian cut me off. Just get them. And Hunter, leave Julian for the vultures. But Victor, save a piece of him for me. I plan to, I said. I terminated the call. The jet pitched forward. We were diving now. The sky outside the window shifted from the deep blue of the stratosphere to the dusty brown of the Texas desert. The landing gear groaned as it lowered. I stood up and unzipped my deployment bag. I didn't have my full combat loadout. No body armor, no grenades. Just my fatigues, my boots, and the service pistol I had smuggled on board. I checked the magazine. 15 rounds. Plus 1 in the chamber. 16 bullets. There were probably 10 cartel soldiers waiting at that hangar. Plus Victor. The odds were bad. But the odds didn't know who was coming. Touchdown in 60 seconds. Logan shouted. It's gonna be rough, Sergeant. This strip hasn't been paved since the Cold War. I sat back down and braced my legs against the seat in front of me. The ground rushed up to meet us. The tires shrieked as they hit the cracked asphalt, the jet shuddering violently as Logan fought to keep it straight. Dust billowed up past the windows, blocking out the sun. We skidded to a halt at the far end of the runway, hidden behind a row of rusted hangars. The engine spooled down. Go, Logan yelled, popping the door seal. I'll keep the engines warm for exactly 60 minutes. After that, I have to fly out or I'll be grounded for fuel. Give me 40, I said. I jumped from the hatch, my boots hitting the Texas dirt. The heat hit me instantly, dry, suffocating heat. I scanned the perimeter. There, sitting by a broken fence, was the rusted Ford pickup Ian had promised. I didn't run. I moved with purpose. I reached the truck, grabbed the keys from the gas cap, and threw my bag into the passenger seat. The engine roared to life with a cough of black smoke. I checked the time. 3 hours and 10 minutes left on the clock. But Ian said the deal was happening now. Victor was early. I slammed the truck into gear and tore through the chain-link fence, the metal screeching against the hood. I wasn't a soldier anymore. I was a father, and I was coming for them. The Ford pickup rattled like a tin can full of nails as I pushed it past 90 miles per hour. The suspension was shot, and every crack in the Texas asphalt sent a jolt straight up my spine, but I didn't lift my foot off the gas. The scenery outside was a blur of mesquite brush and barbed wire, a landscape I had defended a dozen times in foreign deserts, but now, seeing it here at home, it felt alien. It felt like a battlefield. I kept one eye on the road and the other on the tablet strapped to the passenger seat. The blue dot, Victor's location, had stopped moving again. He wasn't at the airstrip yet. He had pulled off the highway about 5 miles short of the border. I zoomed in on the map. It was a cluster of buildings off a dirt service road. A gas station that looked closed, and a cheap roadside motel called the Desert Rose Inn. It was the kind of place people only stopped at if they were hiding or lost. Victor wasn't lost. He was stalling. He was probably waiting for the all clear from Julian, the cartel contact Ian had warned me about. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Ian. Satellite update. 2 vehicles just left the airstrip heading north. Looks like the welcoming committee. You have maybe 20 minutes before they link up with your target. 20 minutes. If the cartel soldiers reached Victor first, this would turn into a firefight with my daughters caught in the middle. I couldn't let that happen. I had to get to Victor before his new friends did. I killed the headlights as I turned onto the gravel service road. The truck rolled to a stop about 300 yards from the motel. The sun was high and punishing, baking the roof of the cab. I grabbed the thermal scope Ian had left under the seat and kicked the door open, staying low. I moved through the brush, my boots silent on the dry earth. The smell of sage and gasoline filled the air. I reached a ridge overlooking the motel parking lot and brought the scope to my eye. The world turned into shades of gray and white hot. There was the black Suburban. The hood was glowing white. Engine block was still hot. It had been parked recently. I scanned the motel rooms. Most were cold, dark rectangles. Empty. But room 104 was glowing. I saw 3 heat signatures inside. One large signature, an adult male, pacing back and forth near the window. That had to be Victor. 2 smaller signatures were huddled together on the bed. Small frames. Sitting still. Harper and Ruby. I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. They were alive. They were together. And for right now, they were alone with him. I lowered the scope. The rage that had been fueling me since the airfield started to shift into something colder, sharper. This wasn't about anger anymore. This was about geometry. Angles. Lines of sight. If I kicked down the door, Victor might panic. He might have a gun. He might use them as shields. He was a desperate man who had already sold them. I couldn't put it past him to hurt them if he felt cornered. I needed him to come out. I crept closer, using the parked cars as cover until I was crouching behind a dumpster 20 feet from his door. I could hear his voice now. The window was cracked open slightly to let in a breeze. "No, I'm here," Victor was saying, his voice high and thready. He was on the phone. "I'm at the spot. Where's the cash? You said half up front." I moved to the side of the building, pressing my back against the hot stucco. "Don't give me that," Victor snapped. "I have the merchandise." "They're quiet. I gave them something to sleep. Just a little Benadryl, okay? They're fine." My hand drifted to the knife on my belt. He drugged them. The thought made my vision blur for a second. I had to close my eyes and force the soldier back into control. Focus. Strategy first. Punishment later. "Just get here," Victor hissed. "I don't like waiting." There's a cop car that drove by twice." "I'm getting nervous." He was lying. There were no cops. He was spooked. I looked around the parking lot. I needed a distraction. Something to draw him out of that room and away from the girls. My eyes landed on the fuse box mounted on the side of the motel office. It was old, the cover rusted shut. Perfect. I moved silently to the box, popped the latch with the tip of my knife, and looked at the breakers. Room 104. I didn't just flip the switch. I pulled the wire loose, sparking it against the metal casing until it sizzled and smoked. The lights in room 104 died instantly. The AC unit in the window rattled and groaned to a halt. Inside the room, I heard Victor curse. "What the hell? Julian, you there?" Silence. "Great," he muttered. "Just great." I moved back to the shadows between the rooms, waiting. The door to room 104 clicked. The handle turned. Victor stepped out into the blinding Texas sunlight. He was sweating, his expensive linen shirt stained at the armpits. He held his phone up, trying to get a signal, looking around at the dead AC unit. He looked softer than I remembered. Weaker. He wasn't checking his corners. He wasn't looking for threats. He was just a man annoyed by the heat. He took 2 steps away from the door. Then 3. He was 10 feet from the girls. That was all the room I needed. I stepped out from behind the pillar. I didn't run. I didn't yell. I just walked toward him. Victor turned at the sound of my boots on the gravel. He squinted, the sun in his eyes. He didn't recognize me at first. I was just a silhouette in fatigues. "Hey," he said, his voice trembling. "You work here." The power just. Then I stepped into his shadow. Victor's eyes went wide. His phone slipped from his sweat-slicked fingers and hit the pavement with a crack. His mouth opened, but no sound came out. He looked like he was seeing a ghost. "Hello, Victor," I said. He tried to scramble back, reaching for the waistband of his pants, maybe for a weapon he didn't know how to use. I didn't give him the chance. I closed the distance in a blur of motion, grabbing him by the throat and slamming him against the rough stucco wall of the motel. The air left his lungs in a wheezing gasp. I leaned in close, my face inches from his. "Don't scream," I whispered, my voice flat and dead. "If you wake them up, I'll peel you apart right here." Victor's knees buckled as I dragged him around the corner of the motel, out of sight of the room where my daughters were sleeping. His shoes scraped against the gravel, leaving twin trails in the dust. He tried to twist free, but I had him by the collar, and I wasn't letting go. "Hunter, wait, just wait," he gasped, his voice cracking. I shoved him against the side of a rusted dumpster. The metal boomed like a drum. He stumbled, caught himself on the edge, and looked up at me with wild, terrified eyes. "You're supposed to be overseas," he stammered, his hands raised defensively. "How are you? How are you here?" I didn't answer. I just stared at him. Victor was exactly what I remembered. Slick back hair, now matted with sweat. A silk button-down that probably cost $600, now wrinkled and stained. He wore expensive cologne, but underneath it I could smell fear, sharp and sour, like ammonia. "Listen," he said, his voice shaking. "This isn't what it looks like, okay? I can explain." "Explain what?" I asked quietly. "Explain why my daughters are drugged in that room. Explain why you were about to hand them over to the cartel." "I wasn't going to hurt them," Victor shouted, then immediately lowered his voice when he saw the look on my face. "I swear to God, Hunter, I wasn't going to hurt them. It was just supposed to be temporary. Just until I got the money back. Then I was going to get them back." I stepped closer. He flinched. "Get them back," I repeated slowly. "From who, Victor?" He looked away, his jaw trembling. From Julian." "And who is Julian?" Victor swallowed hard. "He's a broker. He moves kids across the border. Connects buyers with sellers. But he promised me that he'd hold them for 48 hours. Just until I could get the cash together. I wasn't selling them permanently. I was just borrowing against them." The words hung in the air like poison gas. "Borrowing," I said. My voice didn't sound like my own anymore. It sounded hollow, distant. "You borrowed my children. I didn't have a choice." Victor cried. His hands were shaking now, his fingers twitching. "The cartel was going to kill me, Hunter. They were going to kill Violet too. I owed them $300,000. I had 1 week to pay, or they were going to cut us into pieces and mail us to our families. What was I supposed to do? Not gamble away money you didn't have," I said. "I was trying to fix it," he shouted. "I had a system. I was going to double my money in Vegas and pay them back, but the cards didn't fall right. It wasn't my fault." I grabbed him by the front of his shirt and lifted him off his feet, slamming him back against the dumpster again. His head cracked against the metal. He yelped. "Where is Julian right now?" I asked. "I don't know." Victor whimpered. "He was supposed to call me when he got close. He said he'd meet me at the airstrip in an hour." "An hour?" I checked my watch. That gave me time. Barely. "What's his number?" Victor hesitated. I tightened my grip on his collar, cutting off his air. Okay. He choked. He fumbled for his phone in his pocket, but I had already knocked it out of his hand earlier. It was lying shattered on the pavement 10 feet away. "It's in my contacts," he gasped. "Under JR, just let me breathe, man." I released him. He crumpled to the ground, coughing and clutching his throat. I walked over to the broken phone, picked it up, and pried the screen open with my knife. The display flickered, but it still worked. I scrolled through his contacts. There it was. JR. A local Texas number. I memorized it, then crushed the phone under my boot. "You just destroyed my phone," Victor protested weakly. "You destroyed my family," I said. "We're not even close to even." Victor sat on the ground, breathing hard. His eyes darted toward the parking lot, toward the road. He was thinking about running. "Don't," I warned. He froze. "Where's Violet?" I asked. "Does she know?" Victor looked down at his hands. He didn't answer. "Victor," I said, my voice dropping lower. "Does she know?" She knew I was in trouble," he admitted quietly. "She knew I owed money. But she didn't know I was going to. She didn't know about this part." "I swear." "You're lying." "I'm not," he insisted, looking up at me with desperation in his eyes. "She thought I was taking them camping. She thought I was being a good stepdad, bonding with them. She has no idea, Hunter. You have to believe me. I studied his face, the sweat, the trembling lip, the way his eyes kept flicking away from mine. He was lying, but I didn't have time to break him down piece by piece. I needed to move. Get up, I ordered. Victor hesitated, then slowly pushed himself to his feet. What are you going to do? I'm going to put you somewhere you can't run, I said. And then I'm going to get my daughters out of here. And then what? Victor asked, his voice barely a whisper. I looked him dead in the eyes. And then I'm going to find Julian. And when I'm done with him, I'm coming back for you. Victor's face went pale. Hunter, please. I made a mistake. I know I did. But I'm not a monster. I'm just in over my head. You sold children to save your own skin, I said. That makes you worse than a monster. That makes you a coward. I grabbed a roll of duct tape from the bed of the nearby pickup truck, left there by some contractor months ago, now sun-faded and half-melted. I wrapped Victor's wrists together behind his back, then his ankles. He didn't resist. He just stood there, shaking, tears streaming down his face. Please don't kill me, he whispered. I'm not going to kill you, I said as I finished the tape. That would be too easy. I dragged him to a storage shed at the far end of the motel property. The door was locked with a cheap padlock. I snapped it off with a sharp twist of my knife and shoved Victor inside. He stumbled into the darkness, knocking over a stack of paint cans. Hunter, he yelled, you can't leave me in here. I stepped into the doorway, blocking the light. Julian is going to show up at that airstrip expecting a delivery. When you don't answer your phone, he's going to get suspicious. And when he gets suspicious, he's going to send people looking for you. Victor's breathing quickened. What? What are you saying? I'm saying you better hope I find him before he finds you, I said. I slammed the door shut and wedged a metal rod through the handle. He pounded on the door from the inside, shouting my name, but his voice was already fading as I walked away. I moved quickly back to room 104. The door was still ajar. I pushed it open slowly, letting my eyes adjust to the dim interior. Harper and Ruby were exactly where I had seen them on the thermal scope. They were lying on the bed, curled up together like they always did during thunderstorms. Their yellow dresses were wrinkled and dirty. Harper's hair was tangled. Ruby's face was streaked with dried tears. But they were breathing. They were safe. I knelt beside the bed and gently touched Harper's shoulder. She stirred but didn't wake. Victor had given them enough sedative to keep them under for hours. I couldn't wait for them to wake up. I had to move. I scooped Ruby into my arms first, cradling her head against my chest. She was so light, too light. Then I carefully lifted Harper with my other arm. She murmured something in her sleep, something that sounded like, "Daddy," and my throat tightened. "I'm here," I whispered. "I've got you." I carried them both out to the truck and laid them gently in the back seat, buckling them in as carefully as I could. I draped my jacket over them like a blanket. I stood there for a moment, just watching them breathe. Then I got into the driver's seat, started the engine, and pointed the truck toward the airstrip. Julian was waiting, and I was coming. I drove the Ford pickup off the main road and down into a dry wash, the tires crunching softly over crushed rock and sagebrush. The banks of the arroyo were high enough to hide the truck from the highway, burying us in the shadows of the ravine. I killed the engine. The silence that followed was heavy, broken only by the ticking of the cooling metal and the soft, rhythmic breathing of the twins in the back seat. I turned around to check on them. They were still out, deep in the chemical sleep Victor had forced on them. Harper's thumb was near her mouth. Ruby's head was resting on a rolled-up flannel shirt I had placed under her. They looked peaceful, but they weren't safe. Not yet. If I drove away now, I would just be a father running with his children. By morning, Victor would be found. He would spin a story. He would say I broke in, assaulted him, and kidnapped the girls. Violet would back him up. The police would put out an Amber Alert with my name on it. I would be a fugitive, hunted by the very country I had spent 15 years defending. And the cartel. They wouldn't call the police. They would just send a cleanup crew. I needed insurance. I needed proof. I looked at the tactical watch on my wrist. 1,340 hours. The meat was set for 1,400. 20 minutes. I reached under the seat and pulled out the thermal scope and the duct tape. I checked my pistol. 15 rounds. It wasn't enough for a war, but it was enough for a conversation. I took off my jacket and draped it over the windows in the back, blocking out the sun and hiding the girls from anyone who might happen to walk by. I locked the doors. "I'll be right back," I whispered to the empty air. "I promise." I moved up the embankment, staying low. The airstrip was a mile east. I covered the ground in a crouching run, my boots finding purchase on the hard-packed dirt. The heat was brutal, shimmering off the ground in waves, but I didn't feel it. My body had switched into a different mode. Heart rate slow, adrenaline controlled. I wasn't a panicked parent anymore. I was a weapon. I reached the perimeter fence of the airstrip 10 minutes later. It was chain link, topped with razor wire, but there was a washout near the drainage pipe where the earth had eroded away. I slid under the fence, dragging my pack behind me. Hangar 4 was the largest structure on the lot, a corrugated metal beast with peeling white paint. 2 black SUVs were parked out front. I moved to the cover of a rusted fuel tank about 50 yards away and brought the thermal scope to my eye. 3 heat signatures outside. Guards. They were armed, assault rifles slung over their chests, tactical vests. These weren't street thugs. These were pros. Cartel sicarios. 1 signature inside the hangar. Sitting at a table. That had to be Julian. I scanned the perimeter again. No dogs. No cameras on the south side. I moved. I closed the distance to the side of the hangar, timing my movements with the guard's patrol patterns. The first guard was leaning against the SUV, smoking a cigarette. He was bored. Complacent. He never heard me. I came up behind him, my arm locking around his windpipe before he could draw a breath. I dragged him back into the shadow of the fuel tank. He struggled for 3 seconds, his boots scraping the dirt, and then he went limp. I lowered him gently to the ground and zip-tied his hands and feet. 1 down. 2 to go. The other 2 were talking near the hangar door. I picked up a rock and tossed it against the far wall of the metal building. Clang. They both turned. One of them, the taller one, gestured for the other to check it out. "Probably a coyote," the taller one muttered in Spanish. "Or the wind," the other replied. As the second guard walked toward the noise, I slipped out from under the chassis of a parked tractor. I moved fast and low. I struck him hard behind the ear with the butt of my pistol. He dropped like a sack of cement. The tall guard turned back around, realizing too late that he was alone. He reached for his radio. "Don't," I said. He froze. I was 10 feet away, my pistol aimed squarely at his chest. "Hands," I ordered. "Now." He hesitated. I saw his eyes flick toward the rifle on his chest. "Do it and you die," I said. My voice was calm, conversational. "I just want to talk to the man inside." He slowly raised his hands. I moved in, stripped his weapons, and knocked him out cold with a precise strike to the jaw. I didn't have time for prisoners. I dragged him next to his friend and moved to the hangar door. It was slightly ajar. I stepped inside. The hangar was cool and smelled of aviation fuel. In the center of the vast, empty space sat a folding table with a laptop, a satellite phone, and a metal briefcase. A man was sitting there, typing on the computer. He was small, wearing a pristine white suit that looked ridiculous in a dusty hangar. He had round glasses and the soft hands of someone who had never done a day of manual labor in his life. "Julian, you're late." "Victor," he said without looking up. I was about to leave. "Victor isn't coming," I said. Julian stopped typing. He didn't jump. He didn't panic. He just slowly closed the laptop and looked up. He saw the gun in my hand. He saw the dust on my clothes. And then he smiled. "You must be the father," Julian said. His accent was refined, educated. "Hunter, isn't it? The soldier." "Where is the data?" I asked, walking toward the table. "What data?" Julian asked, feigning ignorance. "The sale record," I said. "The proof. I know you record everything, Julian. Blackmail is part of your business model. I want the communication logs between you and the sellers. Julian chuckled. He leaned back in his chair, unbothered by the gun pointed at his head. You think you can just walk in here and make demands? He asked. My security team is taking a nap outside, I finished. It's just us. Julian's smile faltered for a fraction of a second. I need leverage, I said, stopping at the edge of the table. I need proof that my children were sold, not kidnapped by me. And you're going to give it to me. And if I don't? I lowered the gun until it was pointing at his knee. Then I start removing pieces of you until you change your mind. I have a lot of anger right now, Julian. You really don't want to test where my breaking point is. Julian studied my face. He saw the truth there. He saw that I was holding back a tidal wave of violence by a very thin thread. He slowly reached into his jacket pocket. Easy, I warned. He pulled out a silver flash drive and slid it across the table. It's all there, Julian said. Audio recordings of the phone calls, text logs, bank transfer requests. I keep it for insurance, in case the sellers get cold feet. I grabbed the drive with my free hand, never taking my eyes off him. There's something interesting on there, Hunter, Julian said, his smile returning, sharper this time. Something you might not be expecting. I know Victor sold them, I said. Victor? Julian laughed. A cold, dry sound. Victor is a fool. A gambler. A pawn. He made the delivery, yes. But he didn't initiate the contract. I froze. What? Julian tapped the closed laptop. Victor didn't call me, Julian said softly. A woman did. 2 weeks ago. She set up the account. She negotiated the price. She even sent photos to prove the merchandise was high quality. My blood ran cold. The hanger seemed to tilt on its axis. Who? I whispered, though I already knew. Violet, Julian said. She authorized the sale, Hunter. Victor was just the driver. She's the one who cashed the check. I stood there staring at Julian across the table, my hand tightening around the grip of my pistol. The metal was slick with sweat. Open the laptop, I said. Julian raised an eyebrow. I already gave you the drive. Open it. I repeated, my voice dropping into something colder. I want to hear it. Julian sighed like I was wasting his time, but he complied. He flipped open the laptop, typed in a password, and clicked through a series of folders labeled with dates and initials. He turned the screen toward me. Audio file. January 10th. That's 2 weeks ago, Julian said. He hit play. The speakers crackled. Then I heard her voice. Violet. So you understand my situation? She was saying. Her tone was calm, businesslike, like she was negotiating a car lease. I need $300,000 to cover a debt. I can't access my accounts without raising red flags. My husband thinks he's handling it, but he's incompetent. I need this done quietly. Julian's voice came through next, smooth and professional. And you're offering the children as collateral. Not collateral, Violet corrected. I'm offering them as payment. Full transfer. I don't want them back. My stomach turned to ice. They're 6 years old, Julian said on the recording, as if confirming inventory. Healthy. No medical issues. Perfect health, Violet replied. Twins. Blonde. American passports. You won't find better stock. Stock. She called them stock. What about the father? Julian asked. Violet laughed. It was a bitter, ugly sound. He's deployed overseas. He won't even know they're gone until it's too late. And when he does find out, I'll just tell the police he's unstable. PTSD. Violent. They'll believe me. And the transaction? Julian asked. Wire half up front to this account, Violet said. I heard the rustle of paper. The other half on delivery. Victor will handle the transport. He thinks he's saving me. He has no idea I'm the one who set this whole thing up. The recording ended. Julian closed the laptop and leaned back in his chair, watching me. I couldn't speak. My throat had closed. My ears were ringing. I felt like I had just been shot in the chest, but there was no blood, no wound. Just emptiness. She played everyone, Julian said quietly. Victor, you even me. She's smarter than you think, Hunter. I blinked hard, forcing my vision to clear. Why are you telling me this? Julian shrugged. Because I don't like being used. And because I think you deserve to know who your real enemy is. I grabbed the flash drive and shoved it into my pocket. Then I yanked the laptop off the table and tucked it under my arm. What are you going to do with that? Julian asked. Whatever I have to, I said. I pulled a zip tie from my belt and gestured for Julian to stand. He did, slowly, his hands raised. I secured his wrists behind his back and pushed him down into the chair. Your guards will wake up in an hour, I said. Don't go anywhere. Julian smiled coldly. Good luck, soldier. You're going to need it. I didn't respond. I just turned and walked out of the hangar. The sun hit me like a hammer as I stepped outside. I moved quickly, retracing my path through the fence line and back toward the arroyo where I had hidden the truck. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out. It was a news alert. Amber Alert. 2 children reported missing in El Paso County. Suspect, Hunter Caldwell, 37, armed and dangerous. Last seen driving a gray Ford pickup. If spotted, do not approach. Call 911 immediately. Below the text was a photo of me. It was my military ID photo from 3 years ago. I stopped walking. She had already done it. She had already called the police. She had beaten me to the narrative. I scrolled down. There was a second article linked below the alert. Mother pleads for safe return of twin daughters allegedly taken by estranged ex-husband. I clicked it. There was a photo of Violet standing outside our old house, tears streaming down her face, holding a framed picture of Harper and Ruby. The caption read, Violet Caldwell begs for the safe return of her daughters, taken by their father during an unauthorized visit. The article quoted her. Hunter has struggled since coming home from deployment. I tried to help him, but he became obsessed with the idea that I was keeping the girls from him. I never thought he would do something like this. Please, if anyone sees him, call the authorities. I just want my babies back. I stared at the screen. She wasn't just covering her tracks. She was destroying me. If I brought the girls to the police now, they wouldn't listen to my story. They would arrest me on the spot. And while I sat in a cell waiting for a lawyer, Violet would take Harper and Ruby back. She would make them disappear for real this time. I couldn't go to the authorities. I couldn't go home. I was alone. I shoved the phone back into my pocket and started running toward the arroyo. When I reached the truck, the girls were still asleep in the back seat. I checked their pulses. Strong. Steady. I climbed into the driver's seat and started the engine. I didn't know where I was going. I just knew I couldn't stop moving. Because the woman I once loved had just declared war on me. And she was winning. The cabin was 40 miles north of the border, buried in the scrub hills where the only neighbors were rattlesnakes and abandoned oil derricks. Ian had given me the coordinates over an encrypted message along with a single instruction. Don't use the lights. They can see for miles. I pulled the truck into the carport and killed the engine. The sun was setting, painting the desert in shades of burnt orange and deep purple. It would have been beautiful if I wasn't running for my life. I sat there for a moment, gripping the steering wheel, trying to slow my breathing. My hands were shaking, not from fear, from rage. Violet's voice kept playing in my head on a loop. I don't want them back. I looked in the rearview mirror. Harper and Ruby were still asleep, their small bodies curled together in the back seat. They had no idea their mother had sold them like furniture. And I had no idea how I was going to tell them. I stepped out of the truck and opened the back door carefully. I unbuckled Harper first, lifting her gently into my arms. She stirred, her eyelids fluttering. Daddy, she whispered, her voice hoarse and confused. My heart cracked wide open. Yeah, baby, I said softly. It's me. I've got you. Her arms wrapped weakly around my neck. Where? Where are we? Somewhere safe, I lied. I carried her inside the cabin, then came back for Ruby. She was still out cold, her breathing deep and steady. I laid them both on the old couch inside, covering them with a wool blanket I found folded on a chair. The cabin was small. One room, a kitchenette with a rusted sink, A wood-burning stove. No electricity. No running water. But it had 4 walls and a door that locked, and right now, that was all I needed. I sat on the floor next to the couch and waited. 20 minutes later, Ruby's eyes opened. She blinked at the ceiling, confused. Then she turned her head and saw me. "Daddy." Her voice was small, fragile. "Hey, Rubes," I said, forcing a smile. "How do you feel?" "Sleepy," she said. "And my head hurts." "I know," I said gently. "That's going to go away soon. Just rest." Harper sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. She looked around the cabin, then back at me. "Where's Victor?" I felt my jaw tighten. "He's not here." "Where's Mommy?" Ruby asked. I didn't answer right away. I couldn't. Harper's eyes narrowed. She was sharp for a 6-year-old. Too sharp. "Daddy, what's going on?" I took a breath. "I need you both to listen to me very carefully, okay? Can you do that?" They nodded. "Victor did something really bad," I said, choosing my words slowly. "He tried to take you somewhere you weren't supposed to go, but I stopped him. And now you're safe with me." "Where were we going?" Harper asked. "Somewhere far away," I said. "But it doesn't matter now. You're not going there." Ruby's lip started to tremble. "Are we in trouble?" "No," I said firmly. "You didn't do anything wrong. This isn't your fault." Harper looked down at her hands. "Mommy said we were going camping." "I know. But we didn't go camping," Harper continued. Her voice was getting quieter. "Victor gave us juice boxes. They tasted funny. And then I felt really sleepy. And then, I don't remember. He put medicine in the juice," I said, my voice hard. "To make you sleep." Ruby started crying. "I want to go home." I reached out and pulled her into my lap, wrapping my arms around her. Harper scooted closer, pressing against my side. "I know," I whispered. "I know you do. But we can't go home right now. We have to stay here for a little while. Just until I fix things." "Fix what?" Harper asked. I didn't know how to answer that. Before I could respond, I heard the sound of tires on gravel outside. My hand immediately went to the pistol on my belt. "Stay here," I ordered. I stood and moved to the window, peering through the cracked blinds. It was Ian's truck. He stepped out, carrying a black duffel bag. I opened the door. Ian walked in quickly, his eyes scanning the room. He saw the girls on the couch, and his expression softened for just a second. "They okay?" he asked. "They're alive," I said. "That's all that matters right now." Ian set the duffel bag on the table and unzipped it. Inside were 2 burner phones, cash, a first aid kit, and a police scanner. "You're all over the news," Ian said. "Every cop in Texas is looking for you. The story is that you assaulted Victor and kidnapped the twins during a custody dispute." "I know," I said. "Violet called it in." Ian nodded grimly. "It gets worse. I've been monitoring police chatter. The local sheriff's department just got a tip about a gray Ford pickup spotted near this area." My blood went cold. "How?" "I don't know," Ian said. "But someone's feeding them information. My guess. The cartel has cops on their payroll. They want you found before you can go public with that evidence." I looked at Harper and Ruby. They were watching us with wide, frightened eyes. "How much time do we have?" I asked. Ian checked his watch. "Maybe 2 hours before they organize a search grid. After that, they'll sweep every structure within a 50-mile radius. Then we move," I said. "Move where?" Ian asked. "You're a wanted fugitive with 2 kids and no allies. Where exactly do you think you're going to go?" I looked down at the flash drive in my hand. The proof. The recordings. Violet's voice confessing to everything. "I'm going to end this," I said. Ian stared at me. "Hunter, you can't just—" "I'm not running anymore," I said. "She declared war. Now I'm going to finish it." The police scanner on the table crackled to life. "Unit 7 to dispatch. We have a visual on the suspect vehicle. Gray Ford pickup. Requesting backup at coordinates." Ian lunged for the scanner and killed the volume, but it was too late. We both heard it. "They're here," Ian said. I looked at Harper and Ruby. They were huddled together on the couch, their eyes wide with fear. Ruby was gripping Harper's hand so tightly her knuckles were white. How far? I asked Ian. He pulled out a tablet and brought up a map with glowing red dots. 3 units. Maybe 6 officers total. They're 2 miles out and closing fast. 2 miles. At highway speed, that gave me 3 minutes. Maybe 4. There's a storm cellar, Ian said, pointing to a rug in the corner of the room. It's old, but it's deep. If they search the cabin, they won't find it unless they tear up the floor. I moved fast. I yanked the rug aside, revealing a wooden hatch with a rusted iron ring. I pulled it open. A ladder descended into darkness. The air that wafted up smelled like damp earth and rot. Girls, I said, kneeling beside the couch. I need you to go down there. No, Ruby whispered, tears streaming down her face. I don't want to. I know, I said, cupping her face in my hands. I know you're scared, but I need you to be brave for me right now. Can you do that? Harper stood up first. She was shaking, but she nodded. Come on, Ruby. Daddy will come get us. I helped them down the ladder one at a time. When they reached the bottom, I leaned over the edge. No matter what you hear, I said, my voice steady, you stay quiet. You don't make a sound. Do you understand? Yes, Harper whispered. I'll come back for you, I promised. I swear. I closed the hatch and threw the rug back over it. Then I grabbed the duffel bag Ian had brought and started pulling out supplies. What's the play? Ian asked, checking the magazine in his pistol. We don't kill anyone, I said. If I shoot a cop, even a dirty one, I'm done. The story becomes about me, not Violet. So what do we do? Ian asked. Let them arrest you. No, I said. We make it complicated. I moved to the window and scanned the perimeter. The cabin was surrounded by open ground on 3 sides, but the back was bordered by a dry creek bed with thick brush. If I could funnel them into a choke point, I could control the engagement. Ian, I need you outside, I said. Take the thermal scope and get to the ridge. If they try to flank, I need to know. Ian nodded and slipped out the back door, disappearing into the twilight. I turned off all the lights inside the cabin and crouched near the front window, my pistol resting on the sill. My heart was pounding, but my hands were steady. 60 seconds later, I saw the headlights. 3 police cruisers came to a stop about 50 yards from the cabin, their high beams flooding the area with light. The doors opened. 6 officers stepped out, all armed with shotguns and rifles. They moved in formation, spreading out to cover the exits. A voice boomed over a loudspeaker. Hunter Caldwell. This is Sheriff Preston. We know you're inside. Come out with your hands up. Do not make this worse for yourself. I didn't respond. I just watched. Preston was the tall one in the center. He had a belly that hung over his belt and a face like sun-baked leather. I recognized him from the local news. He was the kind of sheriff who smiled for cameras and took bribes in parking lots. Caldwell. Preston shouted again. We have a warrant for your arrest. Kidnapping and assault. Release the children and surrender peacefully. I shifted my position, moving to the side window. 2 officers were trying to approach from the left, using the patrol cars as cover. I grabbed a road flare from the duffel bag, cracked it, and tossed it through the broken side window. It landed in the dirt near their feet, hissing and spitting red smoke. The officers flinched, raising their weapons. Gas. One of them yelled. It's not gas, you idiot. Preston barked. It's a flare. But the confusion bought me time. I slipped out the back door and moved low through the brush, circling around to their vehicles. Ian's voice crackled through the radio clipped to my belt. You've got 2 more coming around the east side. They're trying to breach the back door. Copy, I whispered. I reached the first patrol car. I popped the hood with my knife, sliced through the battery cables, and moved to the next one. 3 vehicles disabled in under a minute. One of the officers noticed. Hey, someone's at the cars. I was already gone, sliding back into the shadows. Preston's voice was getting angrier. Caldwell, stop playing games. We will breach that cabin. You have 10 seconds. I keyed the radio. Ian, are the girls still quiet? Yeah, Ian replied. No movement from the cellar. Good. Stay on overwatch. I circled back toward the cabin, staying low. The officers were regrouping near the front door, preparing to ram it. I couldn't let them inside. I grabbed a second flare, lit it, and threw it onto the roof of the cabin. It rolled down the shingles and landed near the front door, bathing the entrance in blinding red light. The officers stumbled back, shielding their eyes. What the hell is he doing? One of them shouted. Preston's radio squawked. I heard a voice on the other end, distant and distorted. Sheriff, we have a problem. The DA's office just called. Federal agents are en route to your location. They're ordering you to stand down. Preston froze. What? Who authorized that? I don't know, sir. But they're saying this is a federal case now. We need to pull back. Preston looked at the cabin, then at his officers. His jaw tightened. No, he said. We finished this. He raised his shotgun and fired into the air. Caldwell. Last chance. That's when the helicopter appeared. It came in low and fast, its searchlight cutting through the darkness like a blade. The rotor wash kicked up dust and debris, forcing the officers to crouch and cover their faces. A voice boomed from the helicopter's loudspeaker, cutting through the chaos. This is the Federal Bureau of Investigation. All local law enforcement, stand down immediately. This is now a federal investigation. Preston stared up at the helicopter, his face twisted in fury. But he lowered his weapon. The helicopter landed in the clearing beside the cabin. The door slid open, and two figures stepped out. One was a woman in a sharp suit, carrying a briefcase. The other was a man in full tactical gear. The woman walked straight toward Preston, flashing a badge. Agent Morgan, FBI, she said. You're done here, Sheriff. Preston's face turned red. This is my jurisdiction. I have a warrant. Your warrant is void, Morgan said. We have evidence that this case involves interstate trafficking and corruption. You and your officers are to leave immediately, or I will have you arrested for obstruction. Preston opened his mouth to argue, but the tactical agent behind Morgan simply stared him down. Preston spat into the dirt. This isn't over. Yes, Morgan said. It is. The officers retreated to their disabled vehicles, cursing and shouting. Within minutes, they were gone. Morgan turned toward the cabin. Hunter Caldwell. I'm Agent Morgan. General Grant sent me. You can come out. You're safe. I stepped out of the shadows, my hands raised. Morgan looked at me, then at the cabin. Where are the girls? Safe, I said. Hidden. Good, Morgan said. Because we have a lot of work to do, and not much time. The dust from the helicopter's landing was still settling as I walked back into the cabin. My legs felt heavy, the adrenaline crash hitting me all at once. Outside, I could see Agent Morgan coordinating with her tactical team, securing the perimeter and ensuring Sheriff Preston's men were actually gone. I moved the rug aside and pulled open the cellar hatch. Harper, Ruby. I called out softly. For a terrifying second, there was silence. Then, a small voice echoed up from the dark. Daddy, it's me, I said, climbing down the ladder. It's safe now. The bad men are gone. They were huddled in the corner, clutching the flashlight I had left them. When my boots hit the dirt floor, they both launched themselves at me, burying their faces in my shirt. They were trembling, their small bodies vibrating with fear. I heard yelling. Harper sobbed. I heard guns. I know, I said, wrapping my arms around them and squeezing tight. I know, baby. I'm sorry, but it's over. Nobody is going to hurt you ever again. I carried them up the ladder, one by one. When we emerged into the cabin, Agent Morgan was standing in the doorway. She took off her sunglasses. Her expression was hard, professional, but her eyes softened when she saw the girls. Are they injured? She asked. Just scared, I said, and probably hungry. We have a medical team in the chopper, Morgan said. We need to check them for sedatives. Victor said he drugged them. Benadryl, I said, or something like it. Morgan nodded. She tapped her earpiece. Get the medic in here. And bring the transport van around. We're moving to a secure location. Where? I asked. A hotel near the courthouse, Morgan said. General Grant pulled every string he had to get me here, Hunter. I'm not just FBI. I'm JAG. I handle legal warfare for the military. And right now, you are in the middle of a war zone. I sat the girls down on the couch as the medic arrived. While he checked their vitals, I pulled the flash drive and the laptop out of my bag and handed them to Morgan. This is everything, I said. Julian's ledger. Audio recordings of Violet setting up the sale. Bank transfers. Text messages. Morgan took the drive, plugged it into her tablet, and started scrolling. Her stoic expression cracked. Her eyebrows shot up. My God, she whispered. She explicitly authorized the sale. Full transfer. She called them stock, I said, the anger flaring up again in my chest. She sold them to pay off a gambling debt. Morgan looked up at me. This is a smoking gun, Hunter. This puts her away for 20 years. Conspiracy, human trafficking, child endangerment. Then arrest her, I said. Go pick her up right now. Morgan shook her head. No. Why not? I demanded. You have the proof. Because right now, to the rest of the world, you are still the villain, Morgan said, turning the tablet to face me. She pulled up a news feed. Breaking. Distraught mother files emergency custody order against violent ex-husband. Violet filed an emergency motion an hour ago, Morgan explained. She's claiming you broke into her home, assaulted Victor, and kidnapped the children at gunpoint. She has a restraining order against you. If we arrest her tonight, she'll claim the evidence is fake. She'll claim you planted it. She'll claim coercion. She's good at playing the victim, Hunter. I stared at the screen. Violet's tear-stained face was plastered on every local channel. So what do we do? I asked. We let her hang herself, Morgan said coldly. The hearing is tomorrow morning at 0900. She's going to stand in front of a judge and lie. She's going to swear under oath that she is a loving mother and you are a monster. Morgan paused, a dangerous smile touching her lips. And once she lies under oath, Morgan continued, we introduce this evidence. We don't just win custody, Hunter. We destroy her credibility, her defense, and her freedom in one strike. We bury her. I looked over at the girls. The medic was giving them water and crackers. They looked small and fragile, but they were safe. Okay, I said. We do it your way. The ride to the hotel was a blur of black SUVs and police escorts. We entered through the service entrance to avoid the press. The hotel room was a suite, guarded by 2 federal agents outside the door. I ordered room service, grilled cheese and fries, their favorite. I watched them eat, wiping ketchup off Ruby's chin, listening to Harper talk about how the helicopter was loud but cool. They were resilient. Kids always are. But I knew the nightmares would come later. After they fell asleep in the big king-sized bed, I stepped out onto the balcony. The city lights of El Paso stretched out before me. Somewhere out there, Violet was probably rehearsing her testimony. She was probably looking in a mirror, practicing her tears. Morgan stepped out behind me. She handed me a file. This is the game plan for tomorrow, she said. You don't say a word. You let me do the talking. You just sit there and look like a grieving father. I don't have to act, I said. I know, Morgan said softly. Grant told me you were one of the best operators he ever commanded. He said you never broke protocol unless it was the right thing to do. I broke a lot of protocols today, I said. You saved your kids, Morgan said. That's the only protocol that matters. She looked at her watch. Get some sleep, Hunter. Tomorrow isn't a battle. It's an execution. I nodded and went back inside. I lay down on the edge of the bed, next to my daughters. I didn't sleep. I just watched their chests rise and fall, listening to the rhythm of their breathing. For the first time in 14 hours, my heart rate slowed down. I wasn't hunting anymore. The chase was over. Now, I just had to wait for the trap to spring. The El Paso County Courthouse smelled like floor wax and old wood. It was a smell I usually associated with traffic tickets or jury duty, but today, it smelled like a trap. I walked down the hallway flanked by Agent Morgan and two federal marshals. The press was already there, a swarm of cameras and microphones cordoned off behind velvet ropes. As soon as they saw me, the shouting started. "Hunter, did you hurt your children? Mr. Caldwell, why did you kidnap them? Do you have PTSD?" I kept my eyes forward. My face was a mask of stone. Inside, my stomach was twisting into knots, but I couldn't show it. One angry look, one snap comment, and I would prove Violet right. I would be the unstable soldier she had painted me to be. We pushed through the double doors of courtroom 4B. It was packed. Friends, family, curious locals. And there, sitting at the plaintiff's table, was Violet. She looked broken. She was wearing a pale blue cardigan, modest and slightly too big for her. She wore no makeup, leaving the dark circles under her eyes visible. She held a tissue in her hand, twisting it nervously. When I walked in, she flinched, shrinking into her chair as if my mere presence was a physical blow. It was a masterclass in manipulation. "All rise," the bailiff announced. Judge Felix walked in, his black robe billowing. He was an older man with a stern face and glasses perched on the end of his nose. He looked at me with cold disapproval. He had probably read the emergency motion this morning. In his eyes, I was already guilty. "We are here for an emergency custody hearing in the matter of Caldwell versus Caldwell," Judge Felix said, banging his gavel. "Given the severity of the allegations, kidnapping, assault with a deadly weapon, I am inclined to grant temporary sole custody to the mother immediately. However, Ms. Morgan filed a motion to be heard." "Yes, Your Honor," Morgan said, standing up. Her voice was calm, cutting through the tension. "We contest the allegations entirely." "Contest them." Violet's lawyer, a slick guy in a cheap suit named Mr. Collin, stood up. "Your Honor, the father was the subject of a manhunt yesterday. He assaulted the stepfather, Victor, who is currently hospitalized with a concussion. He took the children at gunpoint." "We will get to that," Judge Felix said. "Ms. Violet, please take the stand." Violet walked to the witness stand like she was walking to a funeral. She swore to tell the truth. "Ms. Violet," her lawyer asked softly, "tell the court what happened yesterday." Violet took a shaky breath. She looked at the jury box, though there was no jury today, just the judge, and let a single tear roll down her cheek. I sent the girls camping with my husband, Victor," she whispered. "It was supposed to be a bonding trip. They were so excited. They packed their little backpacks." I gripped the edge of the table so hard my knuckles turned white. "Liar." "And then," Mr. Collin prompted. "Then Hunter called me," she said, her voice trembling. "He was screaming. He said I would never see them again. He said he was going to take them where I couldn't find them." She sobbed into the tissue. The sound echoed in the silent courtroom. People in the gallery murmured sympathetically. Judge Felix shook his head, looking at me with disgust. "Did you have any knowledge that your children were in danger before Mr. Caldwell took them?" her lawyer asked. "No," Violet cried. "I thought they were safe. I thought they were happy. When the police called me, I thought my life was over. I just want my babies back. I just want them away from him." "Thank you," Mr. Collins said. "No further questions." Judge Felix turned to Morgan. Cross-examination. Morgan stood up slowly. She didn't pick up any papers. She didn't look at her notes. She just walked to the center of the room and looked at Violet. "Ms. Violet," Morgan said, "you stated you had no knowledge of any danger to your children. Is that correct?" "Yes," Violet said, wiping her eyes. "And you stated that the trip with Victor was purely recreational. A camping trip." "Yes." "And you had no communication with anyone regarding the sale or transfer of your children to a third party." The room went dead silent. Violet froze. Her eyes flicked to her lawyer, then back to Morgan. "Excuse me. It's a simple question," Morgan said. "Did you, or did you not, arranged to sell Harper and Ruby to a human trafficker named Julian to settle a gambling debt. Objection, Mr. Collins shouted, jumping to his feet. This is outrageous. Counsel is harassing the victim. I am not harassing anyone, Morgan said, her voice turning to steel. I am asking the witness if she committed perjury. I did no such thing. Violet shouted, her broken victim, mask slipping for a second. Her face twisted into a sneer. That is a lie. Hunter put you up to this. He's sick. Morgan turned to the judge. Your Honor, Morgan said. The defense would like to enter into evidence Exhibit A. A digital flash drive recovered yesterday from the airstrip where the children were found. What is on this drive? Judge Felix asked, intrigued. Audio recordings, Your Honor, Morgan said. Of the plaintiff, Violet Caldwell, negotiating the price of her children. Violet's face went pale. Ghost white. She stood up in the witness box. No, you can't. Play it, Judge Felix ordered. Morgan plugged the drive into the court's AV system. The speakers crackled. And then, Violet's voice filled the room. Clear. Cold. Undeniable. I'm offering them as payment. Full transfer. I don't want them back. The gasp from the gallery sucked the air out of the room. Violet swayed on her feet. She looked at me. I wasn't looking at the floor anymore. I was looking straight at her. And for the first time in years, I wasn't the one who was afraid. The recording ended, but the silence in the courtroom lingered, heavy and suffocating. I don't want them back. Those words seemed to hang in the air, vibrating off the mahogany walls. Violet stood in the witness box, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. She looked at the judge, then at her lawyer, desperate for someone to tell her this was a mistake. But her lawyer was staring at the table, refusing to meet her eyes. He knew. Everyone knew. Judge Felix slowly took off his glasses. He looked at Violet with an expression that wasn't just anger, it was pure revulsion. Ms. Violet, the judge said, his voice dangerously quiet. Is that your voice? It's fake. Violet shrieked, her composure shattering completely. It's AI. Hunter made it. He's trying to frame me. We also have the bank transfer records. Agent Morgan interrupted smoothly. And the text logs from your personal phone, time-stamped and geolocated to your home address. And the testimony of Julian, the broker, who is currently in federal custody and cutting a deal to testify against you. Violet looked at me then. Her eyes were wild, filled with hatred and panic. You ruined everything, she screamed, lunging toward the railing. You were supposed to stay away. You were supposed to die in the desert. Bailiff, Judge Felix roared, slamming his gavel down so hard it cracked. Restrain the witness. 2 federal marshals moved in from the back of the room. They didn't wait for her to step down. They walked right into the witness box. Violet Caldwell, one of them said, pulling her arms behind her back. You are under arrest for conspiracy to commit human trafficking, child endangerment, and perjury. The click of the handcuffs was the loudest sound in the room. Violet started sobbing, but it wasn't the fake, pretty crying from earlier. It was ugly, guttural screaming as they dragged her out of the courtroom. She kicked and thrashed, shouting curses at me, at the judge, at the world. And then, the doors closed behind her. Silence returned. Judge Felix took a deep breath. He rubbed his temples, looking like he had aged 10 years in 5 minutes. He turned to me. Mr. Caldwell, he said, please stand. I stood up. My legs felt shaky, but I held my head high. This court owes you an apology, Judge Felix said. A profound one. The emergency order is vacated immediately. All charges against you are dismissed with prejudice. You are granted full, sole, and permanent legal custody of Harper and Ruby Caldwell. The mother's rights are terminated effective immediately. He paused, looking at my uniform. And Mr. Caldwell, thank you for your service, both overseas and here at home. Thank you, Your Honor, I said. I walked out of the courtroom a free man. I didn't go back to the base. I didn't go back to the war. I submitted my retirement papers that afternoon. General Grant signed them himself, shaking my hand and telling me that my last mission was the only one that truly mattered. I bought a small house in Montana, far away from the desert, far away from the border. A place with green trees and cold rivers and snow in the winter. It's been 3 weeks since the trial. Tonight, I put the girls to bed early. They still have nightmares sometimes. Ruby wakes up crying about the bad man in the white suit. Harper sometimes asks if Mommy is coming to get them. I tell them no. I tell them Mommy is in a place where she can't hurt anyone ever again. I walked into their room just now to check on them. The window was open, letting in the cool mountain air. Harper was asleep with her arm draped over Ruby, protective even in her dreams. I stood there for a long time, just watching them breathe. For 15 years, I thought being a soldier meant fighting enemies I could see. I thought it meant holding a rifle and standing on a wall. But looking at them now, safe and warm in their beds, I realized the real war wasn't over there. The real war was fighting for the things you love. And the victory isn't a medal or a promotion. The victory is this silence. The victory is knowing that when they wake up tomorrow, I will be here. And no one is ever going to take them from me again. I turned off the lamp and closed the door, leaving the darkness behind us for good. Author's note: wow, that was intense. I hope this story kept you on the edge of your seat.